Oh, hey, buddy, this is your old pal Scott, and this is Let's Talk Tabletop. I've ran my wargaming club for about 16 years now as the organizer for it, and I have introduced untold numbers of new players to the wargaming hobby. And I want to share with you what I tell them in how to pick what parts of the hobby they want to participate in, and maybe what games might interest them to join. So, let's dive into it. There are so many different aspects to this hobby. I'm sure you can find something that you like. The first thing that you're going to have to decide is whether or not you plan to play with other people or play by yourself or don't play at all. And that's a pretty big choice because it kind of puts you down a path. Of course, you can always bleed into other channels later on, but the first thing you have to decide is, do I want to play at all? Well, if you don't want to play at all, you still have options. There are hundreds of thousands of pages of lore from the Black Library series of Games Workshop novels, and that's all in the Warhammer 40k and Warhammer Fantasy or Age of Sigmar lines. And of course, a lot of other game systems also have rule books and army books and things like that with lore as well. But you truly could join this hobby and only listen to audiobooks or read novels and never touch a miniature. So if you don't feel like playing, that's definitely an option. Now, if you do like miniatures, the first thing you'd have to do is find out if you like assembly. So you would have to buy miniatures, and this is assuming you don't want to play at all. You could buy whatever miniatures suit your fancy. You clip them together like a model car or a model airplane. You glue them together, pose them however you want, etc. If you don't want to assemble at all and that doesn't interest you, you can definitely buy secondhand. And actually, some miniatures, such as Mantic's line of miniatures, either come pre-assembled or they are just like two pieces. It's really easy to assemble. If I'm not mistaken, the Song of Ice and Fire miniatures game, based off the the Game of Thrones IP, I believe that's already pre-assembled completely for you. But if you don't want to assemble, there's definitely avenues to go for that. Now, the next thing is, do you want to paint? Now, all of these things do not require play at all, but if you like assembly or you don't, you can choose your option. Then it's, do I want to paint? I would at least suggest that you try painting just a little bit, look up a couple tutorials on how to paint, and truly you could stop there because the rabbit hole of painting styles and techniques and advice and all of that is so deep that you could truly spend the rest of your life just trying different techniques and painting miniatures that you enjoy and then putting them in a cabinet, such as what I've done. And you can look at them and enjoy them. And if you're good enough, you could even resell them for people who hate painting. Now, if you don't like painting and you're not going to play with other people, maybe you just enjoy assembly, then you're good. You don't actually have to do anything else. But most people don't do that. Most people actually do want to play the game. Now, we're going to have to backtrack a bit, because if you're not going to play the game, it doesn't matter if there's a community around you locally. It doesn't matter if you have anybody to play with because you're not going to play. Therefore, you can pick whatever miniatures you want. Etsy is full of miniatures, untold numbers of resin printed and PLA printed miniatures. eBay has miniatures. I would suggest picking the genre that you like: sci-fi, modern, historical, fantasy, and just going with it. If you're not going to play a game, just paint or assemble or do whatever you like, and the world is your oyster. But if you like playing, your options are technically kind of limited. If you and one or more buddies are getting into the wargaming hobby together, then that's really great because you have your own club built in. You don't have to worry so much about finding a local club or whatever. And then you guys can all decide as a group what you're interested in: sci-fi, fantasy, etc. And then you essentially just have to Google like miniature war game fantasy and see what pops up. There's tons of options. Everything from Conquest to Age of Sigmar to Old World to Kings of War. There's untold numbers of fantasy, etc. Games out there. And you guys can just choose whichever miniatures you think is neat, or watch some demo videos of those games to see if you like their playstyle. And there you have it. You can just do whatever you want. But most people also don't take that route. Most people actually want to play with other people, and they don't necessarily have people that are getting into the hobby with them at the same time. that's when your options are more limited. You're going to have to look online or Google or call your local comic store or game store and ask them, do you have a local club that meets, and when do they meet? How often do they meet? How can I get in contact with them? And that's essentially what happens at our club. People will show up on a Monday night and they'll go, hey, do you guys play Warhammer? I see Warhammer on the shelves. And then the store goes, yes, they meet, every week at this night. And then people show up at that night and I get their information, and then a lot of them become, members of our club. Some people don't. They find that the hobby doesn't suit their lifestyle or whatever, but that's fine either way. It's good that they tried something, and if they don't like it, then they move on and find something else they like. There should really be no pressure about any of this. This is truly a fun hobby, and it should be for fun, and you should not stress out over it. So if you want to join a club, the first thing I would do is, in my case, there's only one club nearby. So I would, and that's our club. If I were a new player, I would find out what night that is and go join it. And you don't have to pay a single dollar. You go into the club and you get a feel for not only what games they play, but also what the people are like. Do you jive with this community of people? If for some reason they creep you out, or you don't like them, or they're too loud, or they're too exclusive, or whatever, well, either you're going to have to adapt or you're going to have to sit it out, unfortunately, because that's the culture of the club, right? Hopefully that's not the case, though. Hopefully you find some people that you really like, at least one person that you really like in the club, and you will find out what games they play. Now you have probably a handful of games to choose from, because you will not have the social credit to introduce a new game to the club. You kind of want people to know you and like you before you try to introduce them to some other game that tickles your fancy a little better. And you will find out, like if you were to join my club, we play all of the brutality family games, from skirmish games to mass battle games to even fleet battles in space, etc. We also play 40K, we play Warhammer Age of Sigmar, we play the Halo board game, we play Star Wars Legion, and I know some of those guys play Marvel Crisis Protocol. And that's essentially it. That's pretty much all we play in our club. So those would be your options. And then you pick whichever one. Maybe you found someone that you really like and they're really friendly and you want to hang out with them more, but they only play one game. Well, then you might just want to join that game, right? If you find someone you really like that only plays Age of Sigmar, well, then start playing Age of Sigmar. I mean, the good news is a lot of cases you can sell to other players or sell it on eBay if you don't like it. Now, you'll take a small loss on it, whatever it is, but it really doesn't matter too much. You can dip your toe into it, and even before you pay a single dollar, most people will let you borrow their army, or they'll let you team up with them, etc. And at least that's what a friendly, club does, and you can get a feel for the game. Now, if you like Jim, and Jim plays Age of Sigmar, but you find you really don't like Age of Sigmar, you really prefer 40K, well then, Jim's still going to be there at the club, right? So you guys can hang out, and maybe you'll get him into 40K eventually, or whatever. But essentially, you are going to be limited by the games that are played by your club. Then you decide, okay, am I a fantasy, historical, whatever, that's on offer there. I do know some clubs play completely different set of games than what my club plays. I know a lot of people in the Pennsylvania area and Virginia, North Carolina, New Jersey, and some of them play Marvel Crisis Protocol, or the Middle-earth strategy battle game, or the Mantic games, or Conquest, or any of those. So that's essentially it. And if you're really lucky, you're not like me and you've got multiple clubs in your area. Most cities probably have half a dozen clubs within a half-hour drive or an hour drive, and then you can kind of shop around. But anyway, hopefully this is helpful to you, and I would like to thank all of my beautiful, sexy, good-smelling Patreon patrons, and they are listed right here. Now, real quick, I just want to share with you that there's some tidbits about all of them that I thought you might want to know. Mike Cowley actually is a professional wrestler. He goes by The Grip. I don't know what that means. Grendel's name actually has 2 L's, which is really strange. Beef Supreme named himself after the Idiocracy movie. Isn't that interesting? Jordan Johnson is more powerful than a locomotive. Paint and Suffering is a former vice president of Sweden, and Fraudfishy is not actually a fish. Saul Trevino hates robots. Nate Raleigh is the largest producer of emu milk on the eastern seaboard. The Peppers wear their shoes on the wrong feet. Davich smokes crayons. It's a terrible habit. Brendan is a chronic jaywalker. And finally, Mitch Heiss sleeps with not 1, 2, 3, or 4, but 5 pillows at night, which to me seems excessive, but I appreciate him being a Patreon. I'll see you guys next week.